They recognise those people whose commitment has been
lied and used fake documents to obtain the interview with my mother.
A secret letter, a shattered legacy. Princess Diana's long-lost message to Prince William has allegedly surfaced, and insiders claim it's tearing King Charles apart. What did Diana write that's shaking the palace to its core? Stay tuned for every jaw-dropping detail, and don't forget to subscribe for more royal bombshells. For over 2 decades, it remained hidden, untouched, unread, and completely unknown to the public. No press leaks, no whispers, not even a clue that it existed. Just a sealed envelope, quietly locked away. And then, out of nowhere in 2024, it appears. Insiders claim this wasn't just a sentimental note or a forgotten memento. It was a letter, written by Princess Diana, meant for her eldest son, Prince William. But here's where things get strange. The letter was never delivered, never spoken of, never even acknowledged by the royal family. And now that it's allegedly surfaced, it's not Prince William in the spotlight, it's King Charles. According to those familiar with its contents, this letter doesn't just open old wounds. It hits where it hurts most. Why would a mother's letter to her son leave the king reportedly shaken? What did she write that's triggering shockwaves inside Buckingham Palace? That's where the story starts to twist. Princess Diana was more than just a royal figure. To millions, she was the heart of the monarchy, the one who connected with people, felt deeply, and wasn't afraid to speak from the soul. But behind the smiles and charity work, Diana carried fears that few truly understood. Those close to her say she was incredibly intuitive. She could sense the shift in a room, read people's motives, and see things others missed. That insight, some believe, is exactly what she poured into the letter, an emotional, sharp, and deliberate warning. This wasn't about past heartbreaks. This was about the future. Diana reportedly didn't just write about people. She wrote about patterns, about what she feared the royal system would do to her children, about how the palace operated behind the scenes, and most of all, about what could go terribly wrong if nothing changed. People who've allegedly read the letter say it's chilling, not just for what it says, but for how accurate it now seems. Diana was watching something unravel long before anyone else even noticed a thread was loose. And that leaves one major question. If she saw it coming, why didn't anyone listen? Or maybe someone did, but chose not to act. This wasn't just a letter, it was a map, a guide written by someone who had walked through the fire and seen what was waiting on the other side. According to sources close to the situation, Diana's message wasn't vague or symbolic. It was detailed, specific, and deeply personal. She didn't hold back names. She reportedly mentioned Charles, Camilla, William, and Harry directly. But it wasn't about blame. It was about concern, urgent concern. She allegedly described Charles not just as a distant husband, but as a future king lacking what the country needed: unity, empathy, strength under pressure. And Camilla? Diana was said to have feared that the public would never fully accept her, and that pushing her into the spotlight could cause lasting damage to the monarchy's already fragile image. But the most emotional part of the letter, if the reports are true, centered around her sons. Diana knew the weight of the crown. She knew the pressure it placed on children born into that world. And according to those who claim to have seen her words, she worried most about how that world would treat Harry. She believed William would try to fit the mold, but Harry? She feared he'd never fit at all. And that fear, as we now know, was hauntingly accurate. She foresaw the split, the tension, the impossible choice between duty and freedom. She saw it all and put it on paper, not to expose anyone, but maybe, just maybe, to protect them. And this is where everything takes a turn no one saw coming. You'd expect that a letter filled with maternal warnings, written during Diana's most turbulent years, would be addressed to her sons, or maybe even sealed for safekeeping by someone close to her inner circle. But according to insiders, it wasn't William who received the letter. It was addressed to Princess Anne. Yes, Princess Anne. The royal is known for her stoicism, her unmatched devotion to protocol, and, ironically, her famously chilly relationship with Diana. This baffled even the most seasoned royal observers. Anne and Diana were, by all public accounts, oil and water. Diana, the emotional heart of the monarchy, brought vulnerability and warmth to her role. Anne, in contrast, was the royal family's iron pillar, practical, no-nonsense, and deeply rooted in duty. She wasn't known for emotion. She wasn't known for sentiment. And she certainly wasn't known for being close to Diana. So the question echoes louder than ever. Why her? Some believe the answer lies not in friendship, but in principle. Diana didn't always trust people, but she may have trusted Anne's sense of duty. Anne wasn't the kind of royal who chased attention. She wasn't one to gossip or get caught up in palace politics. That, some speculate, made her the perfect person to hold on to something important without turning it into scandal. Diana may have felt Anne wouldn't destroy the letter, wouldn't twist its meaning, and wouldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. At the same time, Diana might have known Anne wouldn't act on it either, which paradoxically could have been part of the plan. Maybe Diana wanted her words preserved, not spread, kept safe until the right time. Another theory, Diana saw Anne as the last bastion of royal integrity. That even though they weren't close, Anne still represented something solid, someone uncorrupted by power plays or image management. If Diana hoped someone inside the system could one day help reform it, maybe Anne was her final hope. But here's the tragic twist. Anne never spoke of the letter, not once. For more than 2 decades, she kept silent. Was that silence a betrayal of Diana's trust, or a sign of how serious the letter really was? For more than 20 years, Princess Anne never acknowledged the letter. Not publicly, not privately, not even when Diana's passing was discussed in interviews, documentaries, and retrospectives. Not even when the public's love for Diana grew into near iconic status. Just silence. And now that silence feels louder than ever. It's easy to ignore something that no one knows exists. But once the letter surfaced, once its rumored contents began to stir questions across the globe, that silence became deafening. And it left many wondering, why did Anne say nothing? Why keep something so powerful, so personal, locked away? 3 main theories have taken shape, each one more compelling than the last. The first, that Anne simply didn't believe it mattered. Those who know Anne describe her as incredibly disciplined. A lifelong royal who grew up under the pressure of expectation and custom. In her world, emotional outbursts and personal grievances had no place. Maybe she read the letter and saw it as just that, an emotional outpouring, not a royal directive. Something Diana needed to say, perhaps, but not something that required action. If that's true, then the silence wasn't malicious. It was dismissive, a choice to stay the course, to let the letter fade with time. But looking back, that choice may have had consequences far beyond what Anne ever imagined. The second theory runs deeper. What if Anne read the letter and believed every word? What if she understood the gravity of what Diana was trying to communicate, but felt powerless to do anything about it? This theory paints Anne not as indifferent, but as trapped. Bound by the same rules Diana had spent years trying to break free from. Bound by tradition, by loyalty, by the invisible, unspoken codes of the royal institution. If Anne had spoken out, if she had shared the letter, it might have caused a storm, a fracture, and maybe, just maybe, she thought staying silent was the only way to protect the family from tearing itself apart. And then there's the third theory, the one that's drawing the most whispers. What if Anne didn't choose silence at all? What if it was chosen for her? Some royal watchers believe the letter was known by more than one person in the palace, that Anne may have brought it to the attention of senior officials and was quietly told to say nothing, to store it, forget it, bury it. In this scenario, the letter wasn't just ignored, it was suppressed. Not because it was unbelievable, but because it was too believable, too risky, too dangerous to let outside the castle walls. And here we are, decades later, with a letter that was never meant to see the light of day, now thrust into the center of the biggest royal mystery of the decade. Anne's silence is no longer seen as a simple lack of response. It's a symbol, a question mark. Was she protecting the family or protecting the truth? There are letters, and then there are prophecies dressed as letters. From the moment whispers about Diana's message to Prince William and its delivery to Princess Anne surfaced, it was clear this wasn't just a note written in passing. This was something deeper, something more calculated, more haunting. Experts who've reportedly examined the letter have noted that the handwriting matches Diana's with remarkable precision. Analysts familiar with her personal correspondence say the curves, the strokes, the spacing, it's all nearly identical to her known letters. The tone, they claim, carries her emotional signature, sincere, urgent, never exaggerated, but deeply personal. But it's not just the handwriting that has people stunned. It's what the letter allegedly says and how closely those words seem to align with everything that's happened since. Because this wasn't just a retrospective account of pain, it was a warning of what could and would happen if things didn't change. Diana, it seems, wasn't only writing to express her truth. She was trying to map out the future she feared her children would inherit. And now, nearly 30 years later, those fears have reportedly come true. She predicted that Harry would feel isolated, that he'd be forced to choose between being part of the system or finding his own path, that he wouldn't be accepted as he was. She allegedly expressed concern that William would be molded by the expectations of the crown, that he might become someone others needed him to be, not who he truly was. And Diana's warnings about Charles, they weren't just personal critiques. She supposedly questioned whether he had the character and public trust to lead as king, that he might carry too much baggage to ever represent a united monarchy. Every single point raised in the letter, if the contents are accurately reported, lines up eerily well with how the royal narrative has played out. It's like looking back and realizing someone left behind a map, and the path we've all walked was already sketched out in ink decades ago. And that's why so many are calling this letter more than just correspondence. They're calling it a prophecy. Whether Diana intended to be a fortune teller or not, the emotional intelligence in her message seems to have picked up on patterns others ignored. She didn't see isolated problems. She saw a structure beginning to bend under its own weight. And maybe, quietly, she feared it would eventually break. Her interviews hinted at it. Her demeanor reflected it. But this letter, this was her voice on paper, unfiltered, preserved, and powerful. It wasn't written for cameras. It wasn't performed for headlines. It was personal, private, and possibly more impactful than anything she ever said in public. So now the world asks, did Diana leave behind a prophecy? Or did she simply write the truth no one else dared to say? When news of the letter's existence broke in 2024, it didn't just make headlines, it exploded. Across social media, talk shows, news outlets, and even global radio, the conversation shifted in a matter of hours. Suddenly, people who hadn't followed the royal family in years were asking the same question. What did Diana really know? The reaction was immediate. Some were emotional, others are skeptical, but nearly everyone agreed the timing couldn't have been more intense. Because in 2024, the monarchy is not in a place of strength. It's in a period of transition. Queen Elizabeth II is gone. King Charles is on the throne, but his approval ratings are shaky. The once unshakable image of the British crown has become, in many ways, fractured. And now, just as the institution is trying to redefine itself for a new generation, this letter appears. A letter from the most beloved royal figure in modern history. A message reportedly full of concerns that reflect exactly what the monarchy is facing today. It's not just the content that's causing shockwaves, it's what it represents. This isn't some gossipy diary entry or cryptic note. This is, if authentic, Diana's direct voice, suddenly relevant again in a way that feels almost surreal. Her fears about Charles, her worries about William and Harry, her view of the monarchy as outdated and unyielding, it all mirrors today's biggest headlines. Some believe it's a coincidence, others, not so much. Conspiracy theories began swirling almost instantly. Was this letter leaked deliberately? Was someone inside the palace waiting for the perfect moment to reveal it? Is there a hidden agenda, or is this simply the past forcing its way back into the present? Whatever the truth, one thing is undeniable. The public isn't reacting with quiet curiosity. They're reacting with fire, with emotion, with frustration. Across the Commonwealth, countries like Barbados have already severed ties with the monarchy. Other nations like Canada and Australia are openly questioning whether they still need a royal head of state. Younger generations in the UK feel increasingly disconnected from the institution altogether. And now this letter, this deeply personal, possibly prophetic message, is being treated as proof. Proof that Diana saw it all coming. Proof that she warned them. Proof that, if they had listened, things might have turned out differently. And then there's the palace. True to form, Buckingham Palace hasn't commented. No confirmations, no denials, just silence. The very silence Diana reportedly feared most. The very silence she tried so hard to break through. Now the question becomes, can the monarchy survive another storm of its own making? Because this isn't just a scandal. This is the past demanding answers from the present. At the center of this letter, beyond all the theories and debates, are two brothers, two sons, William and Harry, the children Princess Diana dedicated her life to protecting. And it's their story, their divide, that brings the weight of this letter into full focus. From the moment they were born, the world watched them grow. At first, they were inseparable, two boys navigating the pressure of royal life, leaning on each other through every public appearance, every wave from a balcony, every camera flash. Their bond was real, it was strong. But according to those familiar with the letter, Diana saw something beneath the surface, something that worried her. She knew William would one day be king. That meant his life was already scripted, structured, set in stone. She reportedly feared that in his quest to fulfill that role, William might lose parts of himself, his spontaneity, his softness, his ability to choose freely. The weight of the crown, she believed, could change him, not out of malice, but out of necessity. Harry, on the other hand, was a different story. Diana is said to have expressed her deepest concerns about him, not because she loved him more, but because she knew he didn't fit easily into the system. He was expressive, sensitive, independent. In the letter, Diana allegedly predicted that Harry would struggle to find his place, that the palace would either try to mold him into someone he wasn't or force him to break away. She feared that one day Harry would have to make an impossible choice, remain loyal to the family or be loyal to himself. And now, years later, that prediction seems chillingly accurate. Harry stepped away, publicly, definitely, and it shook the monarchy to its core. William stayed, took on more responsibility, became the steady hand the crown needed. But the warmth between the brothers slowly disappeared. Appearances grew distant, statements became formal. The divide, once unthinkable, became undeniable. Now imagine being William, reading this letter decades later, realizing your mother may have seen this exact moment coming, realizing that the cracks in the palace weren't sudden, but slowly forming even when you were just a child. Or imagine being Harry, reading his mother's words and finding validation in them, that she knew, that she understood what he'd go through before anyone else did, that his decision to step away wasn't abandonment, it was predicted, even perhaps forgiven. It makes you wonder, was this letter Diana's final gift to her sons? Not just a warning, but a message of love, of understanding, of freedom. And now, as their paths continue to unfold, that letter may be the one thing connecting them again, even if the world never sees it in full. It's the question that's hanging in the air. Is the letter real? In royal circles, where documentation is everything and every word is scrutinized, authenticity carries enormous weight. And with a letter as explosive as this, reportedly from Princess Diana, reportedly hidden for decades, reportedly delivered to Princess Anne, people are demanding proof. Some handwriting analysts, after examining samples reportedly tied to the letter, have said the style is nearly indistinguishable from Diana's known writing. The curves, the structure, the rhythm of her words, all consistent with her deeply emotional, often poetic style. Even the tone, they claim, mirrors her most vulnerable interviews, direct but never vindictive. But not everyone is convinced. Skeptics argue the timing is too convenient, that in an era when the monarchy is facing so many challenges, a mysterious letter from Diana's past seems a little too perfect. They suggest it could be a sophisticated forgery, that someone with access to her personal writings, perhaps a former aide, archivist, or even a member of the press, could have pieced it together for maximum impact. And then there are those who say it doesn't even matter, because whether Diana wrote it with her own hand or not, the message inside, that message feels unmistakably hers. It reflects everything she stood for, everything she feared, everything she tried to express in life, even when her voice was often pushed aside or softened by the palace machine. She warned about emotional isolation. She warned about a lack of humanity. She warned about the crown losing touch with the people it was meant to serve. And those warnings didn't begin in this letter. They began years earlier, on television, in secret recordings, and through subtle cues the public is only now beginning to fully understand. So maybe the question isn't whether the ink is real. Maybe the question is whether we're finally ready to listen. Because real or not, the letter has reignited a conversation that the monarchy can no longer avoid. It's peeled back the polished exterior and reminded people of something they never truly forgot. Diana saw things others couldn't, and she spoke truths others were too afraid to say. And even now, decades later, her voice still carries. So is it authentic? Or is it just powerfully, hauntingly accurate? Either way, the message is clear, and the impact is very, very real. Whether written by Diana's hand or simply echoing the truths she lived, this letter has done something extraordinary. It has stopped the world in its tracks, not with spectacle, not with scandal, but with a quiet, haunting reminder of what so many have tried to forget. It's easy to look at royalty and see only the surface, the palaces, the crowns, the ceremonies. But Diana was always trying to get people to look deeper. And this letter, alleged, disputed, whispered about in royal halls, does exactly that. It cuts through tradition, through silence, through decades of carefully crafted image, It reminds us that beneath the protocol and power, there are real people, families, relationships, tensions, love, and loss. Diana, throughout her life, fought to make the monarchy feel human. She shared her pain when others remained silent. She opened her heart when others shut theirs away. And now, if this letter is truly hers, then she's done it one final time, from beyond the grave, through ink and memory. Because here's the truth. This isn't just a letter about the past. It's a reflection of the present, and possibly a warning for the future. It asks uncomfortable questions. Can an institution this old really adapt to a world that's changing faster than ever? Can it survive if it continues to hold on to silence instead of transparency? Can it thrive if it values image over truth? And more personally, will William and Harry ever come back together, not just as brothers under the crown, but as sons of the woman who tried so hard to protect them from it? There may never be a definitive answer about the letter's origins. Some will believe in it wholeheartedly, others will write it off as legend. But one fact remains: the public is listening. The conversation has shifted, and maybe that was Diana's greatest wish all along. Not to take down the monarchy, but to wake it up, to remind it of the people it was meant to serve, to bring light to the shadows, to ask for change, not for the sake of rebellion, but for the sake of survival. So now we turn to you. Do you believe the letter is real? If it is, what do you think Diana wanted to accomplish? And if it's not, why do her words still feel so incredibly relevant? Let us know in the comments. Start the conversation she began, because whether this letter was prophecy, plea, or myth, it has power. And if you're not ready to leave just yet, click over to our next video where we explore the moments Diana tried to reveal this same message in public, years before anyone was ready to hear it. Trust us, you'll want to see what was hidden in plain sight all along.